In this video, I'll show how we can finalize a converted template. That means a template has been created based on an input PDF and input data file. The PDF file is using a lot of fixed mappings. So what we need to go through as a checklist is these things. First, we need to identify what is the header, body, and the footer, where we have all of the detail lines in the body, where the detail lines can overflow a single page, and we need to create another output page. We also need to look at the size of the header and the footer in order to restrict the area for the detail lines. We would need to add a repeat loop to handle these detail lines, probably also add a container in order to make nice columns. Then we might need to have also a condition, so we have a different size of header on page 2, so we have a larger header on the initial page, but there might be a decision to make a smaller header on the subsequent pages. Then we have perhaps numbers, dates, amounts that should be presented in the output, in the PDF output, in a different format than in the format they are in the input file. Then we also have some fixed numbers, for instance, for the current page number and the total number of pages. Well, that is by this conversion are just fixed numbers, but we need to also make them dynamic. So here we have an example of the converted PDF file where we have a larger header on page 1, detail lines that overflow onto page 2, where we have a smaller header, and we also have a footer that's going to be repeated on both pages. So what we have here on the left is actually two pages, the two pages that we have here in our output. So if we look into the page, then we first need to identify what is the header and what is the body and what is the footer. So we here should add a header, right click again to add the footer. So now here in the body section of the first page, we need to select, we could search for amount here. See if we have a luck. Yeah. So it seems that we have found here the limit between the header and the footer, header and the detail lines. So here we have the first data of the detail lines. So let's stop here at this amount, and I hold shift down and cut everything, paste it into the header. So that's taking care of eliminating that. Then here for the header, we will need to reserve some space for the header, because all of these fixed elements here, they are not taking up any space, so we need a container that has a dynamic position, and now we can drag here in order to reserve some space for our header. So now we go into our detail lines. They have been pushed down because they have a relative position based on this one. So this is 0 from the top for our detail lines. So here for the detail lines, it seems like we have sales invoice line that are the ones that we should be concerned about for the detail lines. And we have some description, and we have another description below. So it seems like we have these sections here, and add a repeat, search for line, here we go, double click it, and now we have a repeat. So inside of this repeat, I would like a container that takes up the full page, and inside of that container I want now a container that contains the first of the elements here. What I can do here is that I can move the first text into that one, and let me just change the path here, because that should be relative to the current node. So I have this one, we have this line number here, has a fixed position. Let's make it dynamic. And why is that? Well, then it will be dependent on the container in which it is placed. And this first one should not be that wide. We need to come up with the value for that. Let's see, set it to 3 centimeters. Yeah, so we have our line number. We could center that. Oh, it should be left aligned. So let's add a margin on the left, 0.5. The next one is the description. Let's add a new container after that. So we add a new container, description, inside of that. Again, let's make it relative. Let's make it dynamic in the size. And this container here should flow horizontally because it's the main one for the detail lines. So these containers will be placed not under each other but besides each other. So let's do it. Oh, sorry, wrong one. That's this container here that I should make horizontal flow. Yeah. So we could go on and say, well, how wide should this one be? Yeah, let's take a guess. 6 centimeters. Should be a bit more. So, yeah, quantity, and we can keep on adding these same procedure, fiddling around with the length, making sure it fits here, adding adjustment left, right, right alignment will be needed. Let's take one of the quantities. Actually, it's the next one on the line. So let's add a new container. Make it 3 centimeters wide. And inside of that, we have a quantity. Put it in there. Make it relative. And now when we right align this, you can see here that it's right aligned within this container in which it's placed. Yeah, so we can move on with all of the other sections here. We could also add another container below this one in order to include this special number here. So let's see where that came from. Size. So it's another kind of element below each of the invoice lines. Let's ignore that for the time being, and let's just concentrate on the main detail lines. So for all of these detail lines, you can see that it goes through each of the numbers 1, 2, 3, and so on. So all of these detail lines should now be handled by our repeat loop, and we'll delete them. What's left? Well, we have a line here that seems to be something that we want to output after all of these repeated lines. And for lines and everything that comes after this, it's the total, and we want the total to be also positioned relative to where, in this case, we want it to be positioned relative to where the detail lines of the normal detail lines ended. So we could actually take all of the rest here. We just need to exclude. Before we do that, let's find out what is in the footer. So it's an Interform, this whole section. So let's cut that out first and put it into the footer, so we know where it ends and stops. Company name. Okay, so we need to search for that. company name. Yeah. So the bottom here, this part is actually our footer, because it's, in this case, it found so it's not static, but something it found in the input file. Might be wrong. We'll cut that out and put it into the footer. Yeah, we could put it into the container of the footer. There we go. This is now way too far down on the page. So what I can do is that I can hold down the Shift and the arrow key upwards, and now these lines will move upwards. The remaining lines here are the lines that handle the total of the document, and we want them to be displayed relative to the detail lines. So I do the same as for the footer and for the header. I cut them out and paste them into the container. And now I just need again to move them upwards. I can see here the relative position in the X direction, so it's quite far below. So what I need to do here is to reposition them with the arrow up, and you can see it's coming up now. I want it to be relative position, so coming quite quickly after the detail lines. So I should consider here the X coordinate of the top amount, or it's actually this one down up here. You can see it's 8.8 centimeter from the top. So let's be patient and move it up. These lines here, all of these lines here, they are in this container. So what I need to make sure is that this container has the same height as the elements inside, in order to make sure that this is reserved for my total area. So I've done it in that way. I could have done the same by changing all of the elements into dynamically positions, but this should be okay. That I don't expect any wraparound for these texts, so that should be fine. What we have here on page 2 is something that should follow the detail lines or the total of our document. So I need to copy that onto my first page definition, and I have here my total, and I need to add a container after that section. So I do it here. I add a container, but that's inside the current container, so I just drag it out, and now you can see that it's after that one. So now I need to find out the elements from my second page. So it's starting here and ending with this one down here. Yeah, that's all. So what I could do is I could cut this out, and on the second, on the first page, I have now my elements from the second page. Add them in. I have here everything here. I just need to again move this upwards. Something went wrong with the image here. Let me just push it upwards, and then I'll fix the image afterwards. It was the wrong image, so I just selected that. Here we go, and now I can drag the image up. So this container here should also have a height that mimics the fixed size. So this is this way of solving this whole idea of making it dynamic. That only works if we have text that are fixed position, like we have in this case. Good. A fixed position within a an area of our output. Yeah, then we have done that. Let's what's the next thing on the menu? Well, yeah, we have the header that actually changes from page to page. So all of this information here that we have up here, well, it should look a bit different on page 2, where we don't have a logo and a lot of things are missing, and we have a smaller design, a smaller header. So what we could do is to add a select and refer to the page number. Say if the page number is 1, here we go. If it's 1, then we want to do everything that we are currently doing. Cut this and paste. If it's not 1, then we want to do whatever is done on the second page. So let's see. Let's look at this page 2. We have an image, and let's see where do we end. We end with the amount. So this seems to be the things that we want to copy. Yeah, we can copy it first until we're sure. Then we can put it into the otherwise branch and say, well, if it's not page 1, then we want to do all of this. But we then also want to add a container, and that container should have the same height as what we have here. So it's about 7.5 centimeters high. Let's make it that. So width is the full width, and 7.5 or 7.6 centimeters high. So that should have taken care of the special header on page 2. If we had some special numbers or dates that should be formatted in a special way, then we have here in the XPath, we have the ability to format numbers, and we can use the format number function like it's shown here. If you want to make it fixed with a fixed formatting, the alternative is to use our internal InterformNG2 number format function, which can also make it dependent on whatever language you are outputting. So if the customer wants the output the date sometimes with a decimal point, if it's for instance a Europe, or if it's America or England, or they want to use a comma if it's the European countries, well, then you can use a local style here in order to set up what formatting to use. That's a bit of a trick to do that. Similar, we also have a function for date, so we can format the date in whatever format the customer wants, printing out the date with for instance the name of the month and so on. Yeah, there's a lot of details. One thing perhaps we are missing out on here is the page number, because this conversion tool has found the wrong value from the input file, which of course is not the number of copies, but it's the current page number. So we need to change this into a different value, and with the built-in function called page number, we can print out the current page number. Another important one could be that if we want to print out the last page or the total number of pages, then I would have selected this one. Yeah, that's it for the conversion.